The interesting things, because remember the Auckland plan is a 30-year plan, so one of the interesting things that we're going to have to work through is one can think ahead kind of for the next 10 years, but if you start thinking 30 years, life becomes far more, there's no certainty in 30 years, and say so in terms of how commercial activities may play out. Yes, for now there are some constraints, and we need to think about the space and the land available. But if you look at some part of the evidence base, if you look at some of the trends in the world and how things are changing, it might be that in 20 or 30 years that whole commercial activity starts playing out very differently. And I think that's going to be one of the important things that one keeps in mind as we develop the plan, that you can't give absolute certainty for everything out in 30 years. You have to have a bit of flexibility and be open to the things that change in the world.
Yeah, I realise that, Jacques. But you know, we can only deal with the facts that we have in front of us, and we don't know what we don't know. Yep. So we should have to deal with things that we do know.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Hills.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just sort of following on from Councillor Watson, we're going to be doing a lot of consultation and spending a lot of money. We should be using it as an opportunity to do as much as we can, not only to consult but also to promote, so people understand. You know, it's all right asking people, but I think a lot of the time it's an opportunity to once again spell out how the council works, or once again spell out the priorities, or some good things that are going on, or some different stuff. We often send out the same sort of forms with what do you want, what do you want, what do you want, without a lot of time spent on actually giving information at the same time. And then you get a lot of people saying, I don't know what's going on, or I feel like council's not at arm's length from me, or different things. So I think there's creative ways to do that. Another thing of the online kind of presence, to make it an easy click through, or different ways to engage, that's not just the paper forms or just the same groups that we're sending things to all the time and expecting them. You know, and also a lot of people won't want to engage, and that's fine, but also some creative different ways of engaging. And also I have a bit of, not concerns, but the informal engagement, a lot of people don't or won't get or want to get the difference between informal and the formal consultation. Like, people want often one line of communication, they've said their bit, they don't want to come back in 3 months' time and do an official formal consultation. I know a lot of that's in the legislation or whatever, but I think that sometimes that informal stuff we get from residents or groups or people, that needs to be somehow taken into the formal consultation, because people just go, you've asked me that 3 months ago, what do you mean that wasn't my official statement? And just also those channels, I know as a local board member we spend a lot of time, no, that's not what we're engaging on, you have to come back to this. If there's more channels, even, I know you have other comment sections and things, but if there was more ways for that to get sent to the right box, even if it's not specific on the Auckland plan or local board plan, then I think people start to feel like council's listening and it's not a waste of money or whatever's going on. So just stop putting up the barriers and use this as a really good way to improve engagement with communities. Thank you. That was a question.
Councillor Hills.
Good question.
Deputy Mayor.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. Very quick one. Paragraph 5, valuable lessons have been learnt regarding the current plan, Jacques. There's lots of levers that have countervailing actions, so every action sometimes get an equal and sometimes less than equal reaction. So are we going to see a list of what's gone well, not so well, not at all, and been a dismal failure, and make this plan actually a part of a building block rather than just a bunch of ambitious statements?
Good idea.
Whether the list will have dismal failures, I don't know. But yeah, and that's the initial work that we did. That's where we started, is to evaluate. There's no point doing the same thing again if you are expecting a different outcome. So definitely we'll bring that.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cashmore. Member Namani.
Well, I'm not necessarily going to go into a whole lot of detail except to say that the refresh of the Auckland plan is seen by the IMSB as a key priority for us, and we're keen as and particularly our Secretariat is keen as to engage as early as possible on this, and no doubt, I don't know if you've started, but I'm just kind of making that point. And also, attached to that, of course, a lot has happened over since the last time, and even a lot of the work that we've been doing is kind of showing that through in terms of Māori communities. You know, so I think we've got some really useful data too about the place of Māori in Tāmaki Makaurau that we've recently launched, and that can really go towards that. So that's really my only comment. Engage with us early, please.
Thank you, Member Namani and Councillor Newman.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the Auckland plan refresh, and I think this is a good opportunity. I just want to encourage the officers, through you, Mr. Chair. Forward versus Napier City Council provided some really good jurisprudence in relation to the need to avoid planning without consideration of infrastructure. And I see AT down the back there and nodding, and I'm sure he agrees with me here, because it was a point that came up in the 017 case on the unitary plan, Mr. Chair, and I think it's a very, very salient point that goes to the credibility of the Auckland plan. It is impossible to plan with credibility unless that planning is complemented by the infrastructure that is in place, or can realistically provide it in the time frame that is proposed for the life of the Auckland plan. And if it can't be planned, if it can't realistically move from concept to implementation over the life of the Auckland plan, then I think there needs to be some serious recalibration of some of the planning aspirations that inform the document, because the community does not want, in my view, an exercise whereby we go and when we plan blue skies, but we actually don't deliver on what we aspire to achieve, simply because we don't have the infrastructure in place. And that's something that does need to be picked up, and I think that there is some really good jurisprudence that the court has set down in Forward versus Napier City Council, which would be very helpful in informing the planning work that will go into this particular work stream.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to pick up on the points of Councillor Hill and Watson. When you explained the idea of perhaps putting up this package with the LTP and the Auckland plan, and maybe even the local board input as well at the same time, just in terms of the processes, Mr. Chair, is it normal protocol that would come back? I see there's quite a big work-up period at the start of the year, that the councillors get to see the consultation document prior to going out to make sure we're comfortable with the questions being asked and the breadth of the questions being asked.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will be built up with the workshops that we have with you over that period, and then you sign off the content of what we engage on.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, our thinking is it will not be a draft plan. It will just be the big issues. Once we get feedback from communities and infrastructure providers and everybody on the big issues, then we use that to go and draft the plan. But yeah, no, absolutely, you sign that off.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sayers. Any other questions on this matter? The only one that I might have is on the B, Jacques. We're sending this to the local boards for information, and of course boards are increasingly and rightfully aware of their right to have input on plans, policies, strategies, and I'm just wondering if some boards or members might be aggrieved that we're taking this broad approach at this stage. And I'm just wondering, the B looks a little bit cold. I'm wondering if that should be comma after information, noting elected members' workshops and direction setting commence February 2017.
I'm happy to accommodate. I'm happy to accommodate that.
Happy to accommodate that.
Can I just ask a question to support that?
Sorry, Councillor Simpson.
So they will be part of a workshop. Will you have it at the local board chairs at least?
Oh, I think it's probably
Each
a
board.
bit more than that, and Jacques and Denise will be working on that over the next month or so, but it's referred to in the timeline there through February, mid-April, and I'm sure they'll address the detail on that one. Councillor Walker?
Sure. Just want to raise an issue about going out for consultation and combining these various things. And I guess my concern is they're all quite different. The Auckland plan is incredibly long-term. It's aspirational. It's not just council, it's all of Auckland, which means that it might contain things in it that certainly may not be in our long-term plan, because our long-term plan is a budget, so it has to be realistic. It's quite different. And the budget could be quite different to the long-term plan, whether we like it or not. And then the local board plans are pragmatic and they're local, and obviously their budgets effectively, they're different again. So if you want to go out and combine all these things, you've got a lot of mixed messages there, and I don't think that most people will actually comprehend it. They are different. So that's all I want to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Just
Okay.
change and bring to their attention as elected. And bring to their attention as elected representatives.
Yeah, so that's, just take it. Thank you, Councillor Simpson.
And bring to their attention.
Important contribution there. So members, we've just amended it slightly, and I think we all understand that. So it's been moved and seconded. Are the movers and seconders clear and agreeable? And so I will put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, no, and declare that carried. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, Penny. You can't read. Why not?
Well, it's like, I've spent sort of 50 years learning to stand up. Oh dear.
We'll go now to item 17, the roading exchange policy.
Depending on how it's said.
Who's coming on this?
I don't know how to do that either.
You must teach us how to do that sometimes, Sandra.
Welcome, Don. Don, would you like to introduce your colleagues on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have Fiona Wright, who's in